So I've been meaning to make videos and post stuff for a while, and I think I succumb a lot to my introverted side, which is good because it gives me time to polish my perspective and is where a lot of the clarity, the ideas that I have about life come from. And at the same time, I just am really starting to feel more and more that what's happening in our culture right now, the transformation and the importance of perspective in the way that we observe that transformation is really, really, really important. Um, there's no doubt that we're at the end of an era, or at least I think some people would disagree with that. There's no doubt that things are rapidly changing. That we live in this crazy world, and shit. If you would argue that with me, then you probably won't resonate with what a lot of what I have to say. But I'm just gonna try to talk to you like you are you, and not the camera that I'm looking into. I'm gonna try to begin to enter a flow state and use my primary skill, which is language, to help create. I'm sitting here on top of a hill on a farm where I live in a small community outside of Asheville, North Carolina, around 20 minutes north of Asheville or so. I grew up in Northern Virginia in the suburbs, Fairfax County, Nova kid, and in the past like 6 or 7 years, I've had just a series of kind of awakenings, and I think a lot of the things, one of the main things that unites all the transcendent awakening moments I've had is that they're really common sense, and that they're things that I realize that I already knew already. And from that perspective, it seems simple to share them, but I know I find myself oftentimes needing reminders of the things that I already know, which is really why I channel art in the first place, in order to tell myself things. Like a year ago, I started to figure that out about my poems, that they were really just like messages that I had written to myself, my higher self, kind of helping me regain perspective on my life and what I was going through and maybe what I was about to go through. And one of the best things about sharing my poems is that as I share them with people and say them over and over, I keep hearing them in new ways, and I keep confirming that there is a pattern, that there is a wisdom to the things that are happening in our lives, however sporadic and disconnected and turbulent they can feel at times, that they're part of a plot line. They're part of this greater pattern that is orchestrated at a level that's beyond our everyday awareness, beyond our everyday ability to see. And that is what we call synchronicity. When we catch a glimpse of it, it's like you take a peek in the director's notebook and you see what he wrote in the margins as the blocking, and you're like, synchronicity, this whole thing. But really, everything is that perfectly interlocking and connected. And that's a really amazing thing to actually believe. It's trippy to conceive and life-changing to actually embody and believe. And that's a process that I know me and most of the people that I hang out with are all working on. We've kind of had this like great expansion of consciousness, new ideas just rushing to the surface, new conceptions of self, truly understanding that we didn't understand, and now trying to build something on that sacred land, on the death, honestly, on the death of what's happening right now in our culture. So many horrible things are playing out that seem really horrible from our perspective, and are for a lot of people, and at the same time, it's a continuation of the story that's been going on for such a long time. The whole human bloodline, which is really, really old, 200, maybe 300,000 years old. We've been modern from a physical standpoint, anatomically modern hominids. There used to be a lot of other kinds of hominids. Weren't just Homo sapiens, there were Homo erectus and Neanderthal, and we think of them as primitive. We think of them as lesser than ourselves, just like we've come to think of most other species on this life, if not all, as lesser than ourselves. And to some extent that's natural, but they were differently formed. They had different gifts, and before you get too excited about Homo sapien, look at the predicament that we've gotten ourselves in. There's downsides to our brilliance when we don't stop enough to have compassion and to listen and to try to realize that every living thing makes a difference to someone somewhere, that we're all sharing the same air, we're all drinking the same water, we're all farming the same land, we're all gathering around the same fires. And these are things that we've been doing for a long, long time. And for me, it's been just so helpful to tap back into this deeper sense of who I am, because on any given day, the ground beneath me feels like quicksand, and I feel like my sense of ego can infinitely expand and contract until I'm shrunken back to feeling depression and feeling pressed onto my bed, when maybe just a week before I felt like as if I was being led on some grand cosmic adventure, and that I had infinite power. And it's so intense to experience those swings of ecstatic experience. And I think a lot of people who are spiritual seekers do it because they need something. Otherwise you feel like a crazy person. You're just what it means to be human to you is so energetically overpowering at sometimes that you need to figure out some coping mechanisms. You feel like that you're a freak, that there's no framework to support you, and that no one's going to know what you're talking about. But really, the information is out there, and it's been held and transmitted from our ancestors for an almost inconceivable amount of time. And it's carried not just in the double helixes and codons of our bloodlines and our brains, but also in electromagnetic resonance that our heart contains and pulses out, which we feel. The heart is a sensory organ. We can feel other people. You can feel when you walk into a room and there's a bad or a good vibe. To speak over maybe a little bit too simply, but we just navigate through life the best we can. And there are tools out there. Definitely. Sometimes you have to search and find them for yourself. A lot of them are hidden in plain sight in what we've come to call fantasy and comic books. Alan Moore's Promethea is an amazing graphic novel series that I definitely recommend. And so many fantasy books. If you ever read fantasy, just so many of those books, their magic systems are actually based on real concepts. So just I had no idea that magic was real until, well, there were a lot of factors. Probably going to edit this part out. So that lets me clear my head right out. I was in flow for a while. Then I got too technical, tried to self-edit. So blip, and then I forget it. And I pop right back into these places. I wish I could express so many things when I look into people's faces, but I feel like the portal of perception and their ability to detect the things that are happening in my head and the things that are unsaid is only so-so. I keep close company with people who understand, and that's so important for our sanity and our development, because it's good to be validated in what you're experiencing, especially when it starts to just get beyond deniability. There's no plausible deniability if you pay attention to the synchronicities. and you really just pay attention at all to anything, the world is amazing. The world is, I mean, the universe really, because it's all extensions of the same thing, but it doesn't matter where you look, whether you look down, I'm sitting on the ground and ants and bees are gathered round, hornets have nests built under the earth in elaborate secret tunnels, the ants are crawling, just funneling energy back to their queen, blades of grass and the spaces in between, the flowers, the purples, the greens. And that's barely scratching the surface. I mean, I didn't even look up from the ground. There's hundreds of kinds of plants all around. There's vivid, saturated hues and detail. There's the way that the wind touches each separate leaf. There's butterflies and bees. I just sit and saturate in these supposed silences. I give myself and the world a break from the subtle violence that it takes to communicate. And I feel like if you're watching this, you've probably heard it too. Nature's ongoing magnum opus. It's composed by so many generations of cooperation and competition, and it maintains this 4.5 billion year tradition of performances on planet Earth. Sitting here, listening to a symphony, as if composed by synchronicity, if not some even greater divinity that's hidden in these quantum folds of mystery. The harmonies that are patterns of infinity's choir, they express themselves visually in the exploding Fibonacci faces of every flower, and every single one is following the sun and the moon as they dictate the hours. I don't sit and talk to them of reasons, because there's only one. To enjoy another day naked beneath the sun, to birth another son, to bloom another daughter from our fertile wombs. We are infinite creation. And plants teach us how to always adapt to wherever we're stationed, how to go deep below to our roots to weather this coming winter so that our starts can resurface when we remember that first taste of spring, or what it feels like when all this warmth re-enters our frozen hearts. I offer you all this poem like a hopeful tendril, a tender exhalation for your future inhalation. May it remind our generation of truth's fragrance, reawaken our sense of who we are. We're not outcasts from a garden. We are fallen stars, and we're sitting on the topsoil, which is amended for all of our descendants. We stand upon the past in order to marvel at the present. And at night, we can gaze up into our astrology, ascendant in the dawning of Aquarius. And right now, problems from our Piscean past feel very daunting, but I'll tell you what, they're not going to last, because there is a tried and true solution to this hydra we're calling pollution. Self-actualize. Evoke the power of your own evolution. Personal growth, transformation. These things are our campaign contributions. And even as we work to dispel bureaucracy's illusions, we have to remember that we, the people, hold the pen which inked and spelled the Constitution. The vast majority of us, we're not racist, And we're not evil, we're just scared and lazy. But I meet people every single day who continually amaze me, and so from their example, I now believe that I can be that too. And I've seen that it's the power of my positivity which magnetizes people to me. The fact that I have become vulnerable enough to express and share art, that I've decided to put my voice to use to sound my truth and put reminders to the world out that we each have a vital part. We reflect the light off the many different facets of this human gem, and each shard becomes a face, and we're given context by our time and our place. The only way of knowing who we're really being is paying attention to what other people are seeing in us and in what we see in them, and we become the friends that we spend the most time around, but still, it's so critical to take our moments alone, at home, to call back to mind a time in our lives before we stop believing in ourselves, before we started giving everybody else credit for the way that the world felt. Everybody gets to play whatever hand they're dealt. Some people, they really have to learn how to bluff with the best. Just never allow yourself to be impressed by what this society suggests, that our aptitude can be measured by some standardized test. That's balderdash. Your brilliance beats to the rhythm of resilience, and it pounds right here in your chest. People want to know what to do. Here's a really fucking obvious clue. It's buried just inside of you. It's locked in your ancient chest. And the key is your breath. And you've heard all of this before. The only question is, are you ready now to open the door? I open the door, invite in perspective of the condor, higher realms for me to explore. I am a mortal, sitting here in a part of forest that is cleared. I see through life now crystal clear. From up here, I'm so small. I can't even fathom all the problems which I think I have to solve. I just see myself moving forward, or maybe back. It's hard to tell. In this omni-dimensional track, we're just meant to enjoy where we're at. I know it's hard. I know it's hard. To not take suffering as suffering, to not feel like you need time for buffering, and it's okay, and you do, but the thing is that we've assigned a value to which kinds of ecstasy are preferable and which are not. And it's pain avoidance. No one wants to get poked in a place where they're soft, or feel like no one's bought the truth that they're bringing to the world, or feel like the deepest and most beautiful part of them doesn't need to be revealed because the people around them can't hear it. Sometimes you're too near it, the pull of other people's energies. Sometimes you gotta get clear. Sometimes you come out here. See the veils disappear. See the clouds casting kaleidoscopic shapes into the sky. See the butterflies glide. Remember that I'm not the only thing that's alive. Life on overdrive. It's hard to relax when everyone tells you you're heading towards a cliff, but I think the only solution that's feasible is if everyone actually chooses to exist, acknowledge, have awareness. If we cultivate this land, then we can share this infinite abundance. It's crazy that anybody's starving. Food comes out of the ground anywhere in your yard. Just dig up the top 6 inches, lay some cardboard down, cut some holes, add some compost. You've got food. Assuming you sprinkle seeds and water, but this whole idea of having to slaughter everything we call a weed, everything is medicine, everything is food, everything helps us breathe, everything helps us feed. And yeah, you have to weed a garden, but do so with the awareness that every plant has a right to existence, and that there are others, and that you are, as a steward of this space, cultivating the land, trying to cultivate a habitat for a particular plant. You can't have grapevines growing in the blueberry patch, because this is where the blueberries are at. Simple as that. I bless you, grapevine. I love your wine, the fruits you make in time, but there's other places for you. So in that sense, that's the time for the sword. You can't always be merciful. Sometimes you have to be like, this can't be here. See things clear. I'm back on the ground. Numinous found. My name is a treasure that I found. From Jason Silva, speaking around, creative flow state, entering gnosis. As a bard, my only true hocus pocus. I hang out with a lot of wizards, people who cast spells and align themselves astrologically, and I'm starting to gain a level or two, I can tell, but if I want to do some serious magic, if I want to move some serious energy within me and try to affect consciousness on a grand scheme, then I know the only way I'm going to wake that dream is to channel art, is to get out of my head and into my heart, and not be scared, and not be nervous of what kind of reflections I'm going to get when I look in the mirror. If I met you in person, this is how I'd want to be able to express. So instead of just typing little tidbits and pictures here and there, what if I actually take the time to stare into your eyes and hold up this mirror and be like, yo, this is what I've been doing down in Asheville. Farming, learning how to grow food, adjusting to a community lifestyle, which is not always easy because people are real different. Yo, people in Nova, people down here in Appalachia will just drive up to your house and be like, oh, my great-grandfather built this house, and will show up at your door and they'll expect a tour. That's Southern hospitality. And man, sometimes I can switch into that flow, and sometimes it is like, what are you doing in my home right now? But the mindset has shifted so much of actually, like, most of my deepest anxieties and my hopes and dreams are known by the people around me, and I see those people every day, and we're working together more and more, learning how to figure out our own flows so that we can like come into some sort of symbiotic mutual arrangement and use this farm that we're living on as an energetic container so that we can change consciousness the best way that we know how, which is waging peace in the realm of the imaginal, using words, using art, using song, using story, connecting people, awakening ourselves, and walking with integrity to the things that are most dearly held and are sacred to our community. We are the fifth sacred thing. The wind beneath the wing which pushes us up on updrafts towards heaven. Staring someone in the eyes is like playing laser tag. Have you ever realized that, like, our eyes are windows to the soul? Obviously, you've heard that before. But I was also thinking one time when I was, when my pupils were dilated wide with wonder for the world, I had this realization. I looked in the mirror and I was like, whoa, my eyes are stargates. And this I sat down and I wrote this poem. When you realize that eyes are the windows to the soul, it may just be a clue that helps you know that what we have here is the microcosm, mirroring back black holes. Think about it. Our eyes, they're powerful enough to capture light. They're infinite in capacity, and somehow they maintain this endurance beyond tenacity to just perpetually take and condense this infinite overload of sensory stimulation. And they compress it down into all that remains is this entire universe, somehow contained and reframed within our twin optical pinpricks of truth. And everybody can call it what they will, but these drops do distill down into the idea for a poem, or a moment of connection, vulnerability, love. Each of us, we're like the dove. We dive down from our crown chakra, Kether, on the tree of life to complete this cycle by blooming up with whatever light that we can muster through our roots each spring. And in the moments that we remember what we are, we don't have to crane our necks to explore the stars. We can eye dive into each other, to our depth, and feel the connection which passes invisibly between every living being. Just through our breath. And if we're able to stand in that cosmic collision, you'll be able to explore the new worlds that are terraformed by the merging of two different stars. We're all inked from the same night sky. We're all born on this planet experiencing what it means to be alive. And creativity sits in a well on many people's desk that they think sits empty or ran dry, but I know that I promise you it can be refilled if you just redip your quill into the infinite well springs of this obsidian ink. This is my point. When you find other people with whom you see third eye to third eye, you just lower your head and you drink. I guess it's like namaste, which is a word I don't often say at the end of yoga class. Because what it means is so profound. It means that the divine spark of divinity in me bows down, sees, recognizes, and bows down to the divine spark of infinity that exists within you, your divine essence. And maybe this is an embarrassing confession because other people are operating in this consciousness a lot more than I feel like they are, but I don't always feel that. More likely to feel it at the end of yoga. Absolutely give you that. But what are the states of consciousness? What are the actions that we can take to create the conditions for that sort of mentality, awareness? One of the most powerful things any of us can do is change the way that we look at a thing, because the act of perceiving it creates it. It assigns it meaning. It's how we view and contextualize the world. And so if you're out at a show listening to music and you're not really liking it, if you actually ask yourself to like it, It's like when you're trying to see a magic eye. You can't see the pattern at first. It's true that you can't see it right now, but there's a technique you can do. If you do this technique, you'll be able to see a hidden pattern that's buried in the dimensionality of the density of information that's being delivered to you. We can't see all of it at once, but if we shift our perspective, for a moment, you can see through bugs' eyes, grass growing clockwise and counterclockwise in blurred streaks, streaking bees, fingers pressing grass like keys, trying to spell out reassurance, soaking in the earth's currents. My body is a circuit, and I am an extension of the ground, just like a tree or just like a flower. I look down on things smaller than me, like a bird looks down on me. I understand that perspective is the key, which opens the door to help us truly see what is happening, who we are, what is going on in this incredible world. The passing of time, like a soft breeze rustles through wind chimes, somewhere just beyond the outskirts of my wandering mind. I sit pondering, passing time. The wind chimes' music is musical. It doesn't even ask me to listen to it, or even notice. Which is good because my brain's a computer and it's programmed to be on autofocus, sifting through this endless stream of sensory experience for what resonates and gives me shape. My definition amidst all this undefined inner space. We see only a tiny sliver of the whole. The rest is dormant, except to our sleeping or creative minds. Awake, we're all but blind, but in the dimension of dreams and gnosises of every kind, we leave behind the constructs of space and time, enter into new realms, begging to be explored. Evidence of mastery that cannot be ignored. Mushroom spores have been found in space. From this we can infer that mushrooms are part of what helps create, turning death and decay into what's living and today. Where is the evidence of the past? It's been consumed. It's been neatly eaten and hidden and tucked away in cell division, which has become us. It's miraculous, to say the least, maybe to say too much, because what it truly is ineffable, and no matter how eloquent, none of us will ever be able to touch. We can only brush against it with our hands, with our paint, with whatever means we use to reacquaint ourselves with Fibonacci fractals of expression, crystalline grids. We are just the earth now leavened by the yeasts in the air. Like a fresh loaf of bread, there's plenty to share. Rip it in half, bake it back. We have to learn how to make with our hands again. We have to stop living in only worlds of the pretend. And when I say pretend, I don't mean not real. I mean things that dictate the way that the future is likely going to feel. Maybe we could use our media to heal instead of so much for destruction, gore, and torment. I don't understand, man. I had to repent Game of Thrones after the head thing, it was just a little bit too intense for me. Even though I love the show and the quality, I don't really get a sense of equality from the media that people are actually trying to build a healthier future or use the shamanistic power they're wielding with respect and reverence and responsibility for the harvest they are yielding in our youth. The troubling truth is that we are desensitized to war, to aggression and violence on a grand scale. We have it programmed into our heads that the assholes will prevail. There's nowhere to take cover from this maelstrom of media. It's the main way their third eye feeding you, calcifying your pineal, and if you've heard that before, then don't worry about it. It's just a hidden door somewhere in your mind. When you see colors, when you drift away, when you access dream time, there's a projector buried somewhere in your mind. So whatever name you need to find, just know that's mine. Third eye. Playing I Spy. Recognizing the hidden clues and signs. Claim your consciousness. It truly is your own. Your head is the only place you can truly be at home. Be one with who you are. Don't be distracted by another's point of view, especially those who are corporate, secret, clandestine endeavors to control. Realize you are whole. Realize you are one. Realize you're the place where the story is begun, where it is now, where it will be in the coming years, how you deal with your fears, how you feed all your hopes. Some of us are slowpokes, and that's okay. Late bloomers have their time in the garden. But the secret is, once you take the first step, the universe lines up to help you. And every day you just have to take that first step out to meet the world, and quest physics takes over. It's got it on wraps. You're not alone. You're not in a trap. Even if you feel like you are. Climb up the bars. Get to the top. Let the beat drop. Birth a new genre. Create a new culture. If you go hungry, then let's eat the vultures. And they play their place in the game of rat race. But for one who once tastes freedom's embrace, it's no longer enough or worthy of your plate. We can't just consume. We've got to create. I need to stretch. Okay. The screen's been off since like 5 minutes in. It's helpful. It's helpful not to... I don't know why that is. I don't know why I can meet someone or anyone. I can talk on a stage, but for some reason when a camera turns on and I'm looking in the eye of a computer lens, there's a lens of pretense which comes over me until I can transcend it, which you just saw. And when I look back at this, I will see. So yeah, that's it for now. I really want to get some momentum on this, you know? Like I've got a gift with language and with art and with expression, and I have the blessing of not being directly immersed in so much of the crazy shit that's going on right now, and I'm so thankful for that. And I dwell in a place of sanctuary from any energies which would seek to negate the desire to put love, to put awareness out into the world. And I'm grateful for that. So from this very small mountaintop in Appalachia, with the birds singing at you, with my heart beating faster, with the dopamine surge of surrender to the force which tears asunder, fills me with a sense of wonder. Once you get into flow state, it's kind of automatic, and it's hard to get out of it. So with that said, I trust that seed is planted in your head. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving the precious gift of your attention. And thank you for a million things that I won't even mention, because you already know what they are. Love you all.